A few weeks ago, I finished my Indiana Jones and the Great Circle video game review, and I really appreciate all of you who asked to see that. There were a lot of people wanting to get my take on that game, and I always appreciate it when you guys want to hear my perspective on something. Now, I was ready for the pushback by the comment section because it's the internet. People are going to hate your opinion on stuff, and here at my channel, I'm more than ready for people to hate my take on something. That really wasn't the issue. The issue cropped up with a handful of people who kept saying the same thing, and it had nothing to do with the game and more to do with a specific point I made about Great Circle and Dial of Destiny. Toward the beginning of the review, I talk about how the Great Circle has this plot point. Marcus tells Indy not to run from his problems, and Indy's like, "Watch me." Which is again totally out of character for the man Indiana Jones is in these adventures. Yes, he'll comically run from serious trouble at times, but this whole idea that Indy is a deadbeat in relationships was started by Disney with Dial of Destiny.
Why didn't you ever talk to me about it?
Because we never had an argument, I won.
And a handful of people came back and they said, no, you have that wrong. Indy was turned into a deadbeat in Crystal Skull. Now, I know that there are people who, when they don't like a movie, they tend to see boogeymen even where there aren't any necessarily. Like, there are very few movies that get to a point where every single thing in them is broken. That's why I did the Indy 5 review. Most of the time when I see a movie that's totally busted, there's no point in me doing the review because somebody like Mahler already did it. But in this particular case, a lot of people, myself included, don't like Crystal Skull. But I recognized, even when I saw it back in 2008, I saw it several times in the theater. Crystal Skull is a broken script, but it does not break the character of Indiana Jones. So this opinion coming back at me a few times about, no, Indy was a deadbeat in Crystal Skull, that's when it all started. I was like, that's an interesting and inaccurate perspective. So I just wanted to address this because Crystal Skull is not a subtle script, which made it more baffling that they had this opinion about Indiana Jones in that movie. Dial of Destiny and Great Circle, they really do try to create this image of Indiana Jones as a guy who doesn't live up to his obligations and runs from stuff when things get real. That's not the character. And that's certainly not the character that was presented in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I played a clip from Kingdom of the Crystal Skull in my Great Circle review when I talked about that problem. And I did it to showcase why he wasn't a deadbeat prior to Dial of Destiny. But unfortunately, that went over a lot of people's heads. And they were like, well, see, you even played a clip from Crystal Skull, so clearly he was a deadbeat in Crystal Skull. This is the clip I played.
Why didn't you ever talk to me about it?
Because we never had an argument, I won.
And the reason I played that clip was to showcase what Marion and Indy's interpersonal dynamic was, which for any reasonable person can infer exactly why their relationship was always contentious, but it doesn't mean that was Indy's fault. If we look at the information that's presented in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, I don't know how you can say Indiana Jones is a deadbeat. First of all, let's take the fact that he did not know he had a son.
He's your son.
My son?
So you can't be a deadbeat father if you don't know you're a father. Marion tells him in the movie, Mutt is your son. The first thing out of his mouth isn't, I don't believe you. It's not, I don't want to take responsibility for this. It's not, what are you trying to get out of me? It's literally,
why the hell didn't you make him finish school?
Indiana Jones finds out 16, 17 years after he's had a kid that he didn't know about, that he's a father. And the first thing he does is take instant emotional responsibility for this kid's future and welfare. And he says it more than once in the movie after that.
You're not my dad, okay?
You bet I am, and I got news for you. You're gonna go back and finish school.
It's the kid who can't believe it. It's the kid who's like, hey, my dad was this RAF pilot. It's not you. I don't believe this. And what does Marion reveal? She reveals the second lie by omission on her part.
Colin was your stepfather. We started dating when you were 3 months old. He was a good man.
The first lie by omission was, I didn't tell Indiana Jones that he was going to be a dad.
He's your son.
My son?
Because I was angry that he called off the wedding.
When you decided to break it off a week before the wedding.
I think we both knew, Marion, it wasn't gonna work.
Not ran away, called it off. And then she says to her son, hey, I didn't tell you that he was your stepdad because you were 3 months old. Once again, that's a failing on Marion's part. That's not a failing on Indiana Jones's part. So she's lied by omission to Indy and then lied by omission to her son. And now it's all coming together in the back of this truck. And somehow, some people are interpreting that as, look, Indy's a deadbeat.
I think you gave up your vote on who I marry when you decided to break it off a week before the wedding.
So he didn't abandon her at the altar. He had the integrity to confront her a week before the wedding and say, I can't do this. We're not getting along, which is why I played the clip I played when she says, why didn't you ever try and talk to me? And he's like, because we never had an argument, I won. Meaning, you can't talk to Marion.
Because we never had an argument, I won.
It's not my fault if you can't keep up.
Marion is a very difficult character. Like, not just in the movies, but she's a difficult personality. That's established all the way back in Raiders. Like, the whole moment in the bar.
Do you know what you did to me in my life?
I can only say I'm sorry so many times.
Well, say it again anyway.
You know, she didn't try to get in touch with him or find him to let him know that Abner had died.
Where's Abner?
Abner's dead.
And it's heavily inferred that, yeah, even though he and her were having a relationship around the time that he was Abner's, I don't want to call it apprentice, but he was working with Abner as an archaeologist, like right out of school or something. The implication isn't that Indy ditched her. The implication is that Abner found out that he and his daughter were in a relationship, and Abner said, get out of here. I don't ever want to see you again.
You know, he loved you like a son. Took a hell of a lot for you to alienate him.
Not much, just you.
So he left. And then we flash forward to Dial of Destiny, where it's established in paperwork, in text, Marion filed for that divorce. Marion couldn't get over Mutt's death.
His mother would find no end to her grief, and that the loss would put an end to their marriage.
But what does she do when she walks into that kitchen?
Are you back, Indy?
Are you back? Which I already explained that in my Dial of Destiny review, how that's such broken screenwriting. And everybody that's confronted me about this has been doing the mental gymnastics rather than looking at the material. They've been doing these mental gymnastics, saying things to the extent, well, you know how guys are with their emotions. Like, sometimes they project onto other people because they don't want to admit that that's what they're feeling. Really? Like, we're going to twist that so that Marion's words aren't Marion? Marion no longer has to take ownership of her words in your mind. We're just going to push all that on Indiana Jones's character because it's in vogue right now to dunk on the pre-21st century male protagonist from an old franchise. That's definitely what Disney likes to do. But I think it's infected the brains of a lot of moviegoers who are now like, oh yeah, he was that way in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is a bad script. The characters in this are overly lighthearted at at every turn in this story. They're overly goofy. But the integrity of the character is not in question. You know, Marion even says at one point in the back of that truck, after you called off the wedding, the reason that Oxley didn't talk to you anymore is because you ran away.
Didn't you ever wonder years ago why Ox stopped talking to you? He hated that you ran away.
Well, I think we all know by now, after the last few seconds in that scene, that the way Marion interprets things is not great. Like, I would even venture to say that it's not Indy that was done a disservice by Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. It's Marion Ravenwood who was done dirty by Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. But when she says, Oxley stopped talking to you because you ran away after you called off the wedding. You know, after you are with somebody for a long time and you know it's not working out, and you have the integrity to go over to them and break up with them before the wedding, mind you, which happens with a lot of people. Hell, lots of people just don't show up at the wedding. They can't bring themselves to cancel it, so they just ghost. Like so many people in the 21st century with the internet. Indiana Jones in the 1930s confronted Marion by her own words and called it off a week before. After that, you want to get your head right. She calls it running away. He probably was just like, you know what? I need to go figure things out now that my life has taken this turn. I'm going to go get my head right and just focus on my work for a little while. Oh, God forbid. What a horrible guy Indy is. What a horrible person. It blows me away. It blows me away that because Crystal Skull isn't a good movie in so many aspects, that somehow people can infer that that makes Indy a deadbeat partner and a deadbeat dad, when all of the dialogue and all of the evidence is to the contrary. Took immediate ownership of his parentage to Mutt. Immediately. And even before that, he wasn't talking down to him. He was having like adult conversations with him, giving him a little bit of sage-like advice every now and then. Like, yeah, he wasn't going to get overly invested. He was like, look, it's your life, kid. Do what you need to do. The moment he was told that was his son, he didn't say, Marion, you're lying. He didn't say, prove it. Nothing. He immediately said, why didn't you make him go back to school? He immediately becomes the father figure. And he's invested both emotionally and structurally in Mutt's life right then and there. How is this guy a deadbeat? And at the end of it, he marries Marion, who didn't give him that chance because she didn't tell him that she was pregnant. You can't be a deadbeat father if you don't know you're a father. You have to be given the chance to prove your character and your quality. Mutt wasn't given a chance as a child to know that he had a father elsewhere. You can argue that's to protect him in the future and whatever, and through his rearing and all that kind of stuff. Okay, fine. It's thin, Riggs. But at least that can be justified somewhat by the fact that he was 3 months old. But he should have been told, especially when he got to the age that he was prior to being sent to find him. Because, remember, his mom sent him to find the guy and still didn't tell him who he was.
And she said you'd help me.
Me? What's your mom's name again?
Mary? Mary Williams, you remember her?
The Great Circle takes liberties, huge liberties, with what's established in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull to make Indy look like he runs from his obligations. But every single action, every bit of dialogue says otherwise. And let's not forget, Indiana Jones in his entire relationship with Marion and all these women that he's been in relationships with, he is honest to a fault, to his own detriment. Like when he does the math, when Marion's tied up in the tent and he realizes, if I cut you out of here now, they're just going to start combing the place for us. So I need you to stay here just a little while longer because clearly they're not here to kill you. I'm going to take a risk and leave you here. And of course she gets mad, but he says it out loud.
If I take you out of here now, they'll start combing the place for us.
He doesn't like keep her guessing. He doesn't just think about it for a minute and then just gag her again and run off. You know what I'm saying? Like he's honest with her to a fault. I have to believe as well he was honest with her back when they started their relationship. And he was certainly too honest with her in Nepal in the bar.
I need one of the pieces your father collected.
It earned him a fist in the face. There's only one person in this equation who has lied. And that's Marion. And that is the fault of Crystal Skull, establishing her as somebody who wants all the sympathy and sees herself as the victim, but didn't provide all the information, the crucial information to multiple people to let them make the decisions possibly that she would want them to make. That's the real tragedy of it, is that you see in Crystal Skull that if Marion had been honest in 1937, that she was pregnant when Indy came to her to break off the wedding because they were fighting all the time, and she was pulling him into fights all the time about God knows what. She didn't give him the opportunity to show his quality on the issue that she clearly felt was important because she didn't tell him what the issue was. If you don't do that consistently, as Marion did not, then yeah, that makes you a bad character. And that is on Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. But as far as being a deadbeat partner, in Dial of Destiny, that's questionable. I argued that at the time. He's only a deadbeat partner through Marion's dialogue at the end of that movie, which also, through the lens of Crystal Skull, is per her post-Raiders character, or lacking in character thereof, which is a disservice to that character and Karen Allen. But what we see on screen and what we're told by Indiana Jones, she's the one that filed for divorce and she's the one that couldn't get over it. And then she tries to gaslight him in the kitchen when she gets there in the very end. That ain't on Crystal Skull. Crystal Skull can't be blamed for that. That's a Dial of Destiny problem. Making Indy apathetic is a Dial of Destiny problem. Making Indy someone who runs from his obligations, that's a Great Circle problem. Indy didn't run in Dial of Destiny, but he did give up. In Great Circle, they established that he flat out is cowardly. And he will avoid the conflict and he will avoid what needs to be done. And that is not in any way established in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. No action, no word, or no deed in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, from Indiana Jones' point of view, from his character, indicates any of that. So, to those few people who think I got that wrong, and who think that Crystal Skull is where Indiana Jones became the deadbeat partner, I don't think you know how to read movies, especially knowing how not subtle that movie is. It's not exactly a hard movie to understand. It's not The Seventh Seal. And what you guys are watching, you suck at reading. Not all of you guys. I'm addressing the handful right now, so not everybody needs to get angry with me. You guys know who I'm talking to. But wow, what a terrible, terrible take. Unreal. Unbelievable. Hilarious, though.